Hi, today I'm going to show you how you can make a beautiful vibrant drawing of gummy bears just using 12 pencils and learn some great color mixing tips along the way. I'll show you step by step how to draw the gummy bears with your colored pencils, including layering, blending, and making them look vibrant and shiny and delicious. You'll see how much you can actually do with just a handful of pencils. And by the end, you'll have your own gummy bear drawing that pops off the page. So grab your pencils. I have a list of all of the supplies I'm using in the description below. So here I'm about to transfer my line drawing over onto my art paper. I'll have this line drawing available linked into the description below. I just taped a little piece, or put a little piece of tape on top of the paper to attach it like a little hinge onto my art paper, and then I slide my transfer paper in shiny side down in between the two. You want to make sure that you've taped your line drawing to your art paper so that they don't shift during this process. Often I'll like to double check and see how dark my lines are coming out. You want to make sure that they're not too dark, as this is very hard to erase. And so now I'm just going over each of the lines in order to transfer the design over to my art paper. Once you have all of your lines transferred from your line drawing, you can remove your transfer paper, but don't lift your line drawing paper off of your art paper just yet. Don't remove the tape. What I'm going to show you here is a technique where you can use a stylus to push in any of the areas that you need to remain white. You can use this stylus with some pressure to indent the paper so that when you are drawing with your colored pencils, it will just, the pencil point will skip right over this part of the paper. So this is a really nice way of maintaining your whites without having to struggle too much while you're drawing. And here I'm just lifting out some of the darker lines. I'm just going over them with a little micro eraser, trying to get things as light as possible before I start going in with some colored pencils. Once again, I'm going back in with that stylus and pushing down the paper in the areas that I want to remain pure white. Now I'm using a white Prismacolor to go in and put some white down over some areas that I want the color to be a little bit cooler and lighter in value. Here at the top of the gummy bear's ears, you can see that lighter purple area. Putting white down under there is a great way to get that color. You do want to make sure that you've erased as much of the lines as you can before you go in with the colored pencil. Once you put that colored pencil over the top of the transfer lines, there's no getting rid of them. So especially in your light areas, you want to be careful of that. So now I'm taking the violet Prismacolor pencil and just layering over some of those white areas and also putting in the darker purple areas at the top of the gummy bear's ear. So I'm just continuing to alternate between the white Prismacolor and the violet Prismacolor to build up light purple and darker purple areas on the top of this first gummy bear's head. Now I've sharpened my violet Prismacolor pencil up to a fairly sharp point and just working on getting some harder edges in there just to define the gummy bear's face a little bit more. You want to make sure you're using a really fine point for this so that you get the crisp lines that you're looking for. Now I'm bringing in the Prismacolor Process Red. It's got a really nice magenta color and is perfect for this transition from the more grapey blue purple to a warmer reddish purple. Same as before, I'm alternating the processed red with white. I'll put the white down first where I want the color to be a little bit lighter in value, a little bit cooler in temperature, and then I will use the straight processed red as I need it darker. Here I start to bring back some more of the violet so that I can start darkening up the value and cooling off some of this magenta. I'm just alternating back and forth between the violet, the processed red, and the white right now. So here I'm taking the slice tool and am just using the blade to pull out some of the lighter highlights on the gummy bear where the light is really bouncing off of the surface. As long as you have white down underneath your other colors, this works pretty well to just be able to scrape off the colored wax and have that white pop back through. So now I'm bringing in, I believe that is permanent red, to warm up the right side of this gummy bear as it starts to transition over to some warmer tones. I'm mixing that in with the processed red and the white as well. Now I'm bringing back the violet for some of these darker value tones down here on the left side of the foot, or in between the gummy bear legs. So one gummy bear down and on to gummy bear number 2. So I put down some white Prismacolor to protect some of my lighter areas, especially the areas where I want to either be able to scrape back down to a white highlight, or I want the yellow to be a little bit brighter and lighter in value. And now I'm coming in with the Prismacolor Canary yellow pencil and getting some of that down on the head of this gummy bear. Now I'm also bringing in some of the Prismacolor yellowed orange just to warm up and darken the value of some spots here on the head of the gummy bear. You can see now that I am bringing in some violet here to darken the value. I've got violet and I've also got the permanent red going in here. The violet is the complementary color of the yellow. So I'm using that to create some shadows inside the gummy bear's ear, and then the green also helps create some of those shadows and kind of light refractions. The permanent red was to help warm up some of the warmer areas, and there I've got some processed red in there as well. And I'm just kind of going back and forth between all of these pencils, trying to get all of the different colors worked out and set in there. I've also brought in a little bit of the Prismacolor Ginger Root here just to again, bring a little bit of that greenish element into this gummy bear. Now I'm bringing in a little bit of warm gray 40% in here as well, just to get some desaturated colors going on. And here's some apple green Prismacolor going in. Then I switch over to Canary yellow. And then back to the apple green, just going back and forth between the two here, building up these different colors. I'm blending with some white, back to the canary yellow. I'm using a medium pressure here, putting in this canary yellow. Just want to make sure I get a nice layer on there, really work the color in so that there's room to mix other colors on top of it. Now I'm coming in with some yellowed orange and just adding in some of the midtones that are there around the gummy bear's arm. You notice I've got the highlight still indented there, so I'm making sure to kind of avoid that area, but even if I slip up a little bit, I've got a layer of white on there, and I've also indented it from the beginning when I transfer my line drawing. Here I'm bringing in some permanent red just to darken up the value a little bit on these midtones and also increase the saturation as the light is kind of shining through there and making it look like a darker orange. Going back to the yellow to orange now. I'm just using that to smooth out, burnish a little bit so that I mix the permanent red in with the canary yellow underneath it and just get a smooth, smooth my edges out. Doing the same thing here with the canary yellow. Now coming in with some processed red just to deepen the saturation and change it to be a little bit cooler of an orangey red. Some Dahlia purple here. I believe the pencil just before that was the straight orange, and I think this is a 70% cool gray. Back to the processed red, Dahlia purple, just going back and forth, deepening the value in these shadow areas. And now I'm bringing in my slice tool and cutting out some of the highlight areas that are there. Just kind of restating those bright lights. Using my eraser to take out any of the darker lines before I go in, because once I put colored pencil over them, they are not able to be erased. I believe this is I'm not sure if that's the Dahlia purple or the violet that I'm going in with right there. I think it's the violet. Just putting in this cast shadow that's between the two bears. And some yellow to orange, canary yellow. That's some permanent red. Actually, I think that was orange. Starting to fill in the foot with some of the yellowed orange. The foot in the lower half of the gummy bear's body. Just getting a nice base layer of that down. Then I'm coming in with the orange and deepening, darkening up some of those colors. Remember, you have to get your darks dark enough that you have room to make your lights as dark as they need to be as well, to give you that room between white and the light colors in order to make things look like they're really three-dimensional. Oftentimes students will be hesitant about going too dark in their lights, but if you don't get your lights dark enough, then your highlights won't pop. Just using permanent red to increase the saturation and the value here in all of the mid-tone areas on the gummy bear's lower half. Coming in with some Canary yellow to do the little cast shadow down there, and then using that to burnish to blend the other colors and get their edges a little smoothed out, and to use some pressure to mix the colors together. Darkening the edge of that cast shadow with some permanent red, and then bringing in some processed red. Now using white to go over my highlight areas and just soften those up a little bit, especially on that right foot. It's not as sharp of a highlight there. Just going back and forth between the colors, adjusting values and smoothing edges. Bringing in some green here because green is a complementary color of red, and I wanted to desaturate around the right leg so that, and here along the side as well, so that I darken up the value and push the chroma of the colors back, the chroma or the saturation. Using the complementary color will create a neutral, which is handy for situations like this where I don't necessarily want a black in there. It would make things, kind of give the wrong value and color mix, make it look dirty. Using that green, the complementary of red, works really well. Now using my slice tool to pull out some of the highlights, kind of lighten up some areas where just in mixing the colors it got a little dark and I want to pull it back just a little bit. Okay, so I've gotten a start on this third bear. I've got a layer of white down there, and I believe I've used the grass green and the apple green, where it's a little warmer, a little more yellowy. That's where I've used the grass green, or I'm sorry, the apple green. And then where it's a little bit more minty, I've used the grass green. Having that layer of white underneath the grass green helps lessen the value substantially. I'm just using the difference between color temperature, the warm and the cool here between the two greens, to help identify some of the different planes on the bear's face and ears. And just blending out with some white, softening my edges, mixing the colors a little better, making those transitions look good. I'm using the grass green now to darken up some of the values around the top of the ear, and then I use the permanent red and now the processed red to put in some color here on the side of the bear. Not only was this color that I was seeing in the bear, but it also, because, again, I'm mixing complementary colors between those reds and the greens, the desaturation of the green helps it look like it's going back in space. And the darker value adds some definition to the objects as well. So like you can see, it really made a difference where it pulled the light out, or I'm sorry, pulled the eye out. Really helps a lot using those complementary color shifts. Just working through some of these darker bits and deepening the values, fiddling with the details of it. Coming in with some processed red here again, just using that to define the edge and push it back in space a little bit. And then went over it with the grass green, darkening the value even more. And now I'm bringing in some violet up here on the ear and using it to define some of the edges around the face and the head. And then doing some blending with the Canary yellow, which also helps to warm up some of the areas that would have light shining through them, so it kind of makes it look a little more glowy, a little more transparent. Doing some blending with the white here. Going back in with that apple green. Now using my slice tool to bring back some of the lighter areas. That's a really great thing with using this subtractive technique where I add in the white underneath. Any of the colors that I'm putting down, I can scratch down to that white again anytime I need to. So now I'm starting to come down onto the arms, and you see me putting in that layer of white over all of my light areas. So I can build up some color over them, but if it gets too dark, I can still pull it back. And then I'm coming in with a layer of yellow on the arm because I want the yellow to be a good base. This part of the gummy bear has a little bit more of a warmer tone to it. And bringing in some of the yellow to orange. And some apple green. Just looking for those light and dark shapes and the warmer temperatures, cooler temperatures, looking for all of those shapes so that I can get them in there. That all helps to, between color temperature and more importantly value, how light or dark something is, that helps to make the object look like it's got depth and volume. So I believe this is the violet here. Yeah, violet. And permanent red. I'm going to work on that transition between the green part of the gummy bear and the yellow part of the gummy bear. Using the canary yellow now to blend in some of those darker values I just put in. I want to make sure that the color is mixing and that I am getting the correct edges on things for the arms to read as if they're separate from the body and sticking out some. And using the grass green here to work on the transition between the yellow body and green head, going back and forth with that grass green and canary yellow, softening that transition and making it more of a gradient. And my slice tool for the highlights in the lighter areas. And just use the tip of the slice tool to just kind of lightly scratch across the surface of the paper, and that scratches off any of the color that I have down back to that wax base of white underneath. If you don't put the wax base of the white or a lighter color under there, it's much harder to remove the color, the other colors that are on top. Without a base to go down to, you're either going to end up scratching your paper or just won't be able to get it very light. I'm putting in some canary yellow for that cast shadow between the two bears and under this bear. Now I'm putting some white over my highlights and light areas, and then going back in with the canary yellow to just get some of the yellow down before I start building up value and other colors. And coming in with some of the yellowed orange and defining the edge of the leg there and the edge of the cast shadows. Just looking for areas where I see this color. I believe this is the orange. I'm just looking for where else I see that color in the gummy bear where I can use it. Now using that canary yellow to blend again. Using it with some medium pressure just to smooth out all of the colors and edges, just like I've been doing. Some apple green in there to adjust that cast shadow, and now some grass green. And I believe that is violet. That'll help darken up the value. Just working on that transition between the yellow tummy or the yellow chest and the orange tummy. Using some of the processed red here around the leg. Using value to define those legs again, so that they look like they're extending from the torso, or from, not the torso, from the body of the gummy bear. Using white to lighten some areas and do some blending, kind of bring back some of my highlights a little more. Now coming back in with that slice tool to pull those highlights out. So now we're moving on to the fourth bear, and I'm going in with my white pencil and just putting a coat of white down anywhere where I'm going to want it to be lighter or need to pull those highlights back out. I'm bringing in my canary yellow. Just getting a base layer of this down before I start adding in my darks and my midtones. Now I'm starting to add some of the yellowed orange in there around the edges. It helps it helps the transition so that it looks like the edge of the bear's back is going away from us, edge of the bear's head. Using some processed red here, going around, continuing to darken up the areas that I see that are in the mid-tone value range. I believe that is the 70% cool gray that I'm putting in there. And blending it out with the canary yellow again. And then blending some more with the white, which lightens the value and cools it down even more, where the yellow would warm it up some. Now I'm bringing in some of the, I believe this is straight orange. Or it might be permanent red. Yeah, it's permanent red. I'm using this to define some of the features on the bear's face and some of the planes that are helping it show that it's moving back in space. This is the violet. Really defining the muzzle there, and now I'm moving on to the shoulder, and then back to softening and blending edges with the canary yellow. By layering the different colors like this, I can make them work together a little bit more cohesively. My violet now is different because it has a layer of yellow over it that we're looking through, so it helps the colors blend together more. Now using that permanent red over on the side of the bear's arm. And then going over that and softening the edges and transitions with the canary yellow. And now I'm bringing that violet back in and just making things a little bit darker. Now I want you to look at this point and realize how much of a trust the process situation this is, because right now this bear is looking really muddy and undefined, but as we continue working on it, it will start to look better and better. Just remember to always look for those shapes of color and value that you see. Identifying those and thinking about approaching it that way and how you're looking is that you're looking for areas and shapes of value and color is going to make a big difference in how your piece turns out. When you're thinking, oh, I'm drawing a gummy bear, and your mind is picturing a gummy bear, you're going to be less successful than if you just focus on, okay, I see this little shape of orange right here, and this little shape of yellow right here, or this little shape of like a darker gray. That will help you be more successful overall. Using my slice tool to bring out some of those darks, or to lift out some of those darks. That will help with definition. Now doing some softening with the Canary yellow. And now I'm going in on the lower half of the body and putting in some white over the highlights. And then coming over and working on the cast shadow here with some Canary yellow, some yellowed orange, and permanent red. And some violet. And some, I believe that was apple green and processed red. Lots of colors in this cast shadow. Just defining that side of the bear, but using the yellow to orange and the permanent red, just working back and forth between those pencils. Using the permanent red to put a layer there over the bottom of the bear's body, and then using the Canary yellow to soften that transition, create kind of a gradient between the two colors. And now using some of that processed red to darken the side of the bear's hip and kind of push that leg forward. Using the permanent red here for the shadow, the cast shadow between the bear's legs. So the permanent red is a much warmer red than, it's closer to orange than the processed red is. And so by using them together, the permanent red and the processed red, I'm using color temperature to push some planes forward and push others back. And just kind of define the different shapes. Now value is going to have a stronger effect than the temperature, but all of it works together. See here I'm bringing in some of the Dahlia purple and using the value of that. It's cooler and darker than either the processed red or the permanent red. Using the Canary yellow to do some blending and burnishing in here. The white is doing the same thing. The difference was to why I used the white versus the Canary yellow. The white will make it a little bit lighter value than the Canary yellow will, and will also make it a cooler color temperature. Using that violet pencil to define some of those back edges there. And now the white is helping with blending and that transition between the yellow and the red part of the body. Using my slice tool to bring back my highlights and my light areas. And now I'm just going in with a white acrylic ink gel pen, adding some more defined opaque white highlights that will sit on top of the colored pencil and really help things look like they're popping just a little bit more. It really kind of adds to the illusion of the 3 dimensions. I believe this is a Sakura pen. And I like to tap my finger on top of the highlight when I put it in while the ink is still wet, so that I can just kind of, it doesn't stand out so brightly. It kind of knocks it back into the colored pencil a little bit, so it looks like it's part of the drawing rather than something that's sitting on the surface of it. So there's the completed drawing, and of course no masterpiece is finished until you sign it. So I put in my little signature there, and there you go. Color mixing on gummy bears. And so that's it. With just a small set of colored pencils, you were able to create a beautiful drawing of gummy bears. I hope this showed you that you don't need a giant set of pencils in order to get vibrant colors. If you give this a try, let me know in the comments and tell me what candy or snack you'd like me to draw next. If you found this helpful, hit that button and subscribe so you don't miss any more beginner-friendly tutorials. Thanks for drawing with me today. Now go make something colorful with the pencils you already have. See you in the next video.